Hello everyone and welcome. In this video we're going to be talking about why the rotary engine died. And now hopefully it will be coming back with the Mazda RX Vision, but nonetheless the engine disappeared for several years as a result of some of its disadvantages. So we're going to get into 4 of those major disadvantages. Now if you haven't yet checked out my video on how rotary engines work, you'd want to check that out before watching this. So the first disadvantage we're going to get into is that by design Wankel engines tend to have a low thermal efficiency. And part of this is due to the fact that they tend to have lower compression ratios, but it's also because of the shape of the combustion chamber. So here we're going to have our 2 spark plugs and they're going to be igniting the air-fuel mixture, and so this is going to begin to rotate this direction as the combustion occurs. So your flame's going to be starting here and it's going to want to travel out and ignite that air-fuel mixture. So it has to travel a long distance in order to ignite all of this mixture. And so by the time it gets to over here, you're continually growing that and making it more difficult to ignite that mixture. And then you get to the end where it reaches the exhaust port, and some of that air and fuel is going to be unburnt, and so you're going to be sending that fuel out the exhaust. And so this is going to tend to be why you may see rotary engines spitting flames out the exhaust, is because they're not going to be able to burn all of that fuel within the combustion stroke here. And so because of that, they're going to have a lower thermal efficiency, they're going to get worse fuel economy, and they're not going to have good emissions. Another big challenge for the rotary engine is how to keep it sealed. And so you have to remember that you don't want to let any of the gas in this chamber to get into this chamber or vice versa, and it could pass over this way or it could pass around this way. And so because of that, you have these apex seals which try and seal it out this direction, and then you've got face seals and side seals which go along here on the edges to try and prevent gases from coming in this direction. Now the challenge that occurs results because, as you can see, combustion is going to be occurring constantly on one side. That's why this area is darker and this area is lighter. So this is where intake's always going to be occurring. This is where combustion's always going to be occurring. And so because of that, you're going to have a huge temperature differential where this side's going to be much hotter than this side. And so you're trying to maintain a seal, but the temperature's different. And so you're going to have the metal expanding in different ways on different sides of this housing. And doing that makes it very difficult to create a good seal. And because of that, you can have mixture of some of the air in one pocket getting over into the pocket of another chamber. Now, in order to help ensure that there is a seal, you can see here this hole which injects oil into here, so you'll have oil getting injected directly into the combustion chamber, and so that's to help maintain a seal around the edges and lubricate the edges so you don't have any wear. Now that leads us to our third disadvantage, which is the fact that by design this engine is going to be burning oil because you're injecting oil directly into the combustion chamber. So periodically you're going to have to check the oil levels and fill that and make sure that you're running a sufficient amount of oil, because you are going to be burning that as the engine runs. Now here we have the oil pump, which is going to be actuated with the throttle. So as you apply gas, it's going to open up this valve and inject more oil into the engine. And there's 4 of these, so you're going to be injecting directly into the housing, but you're also going to be injecting into essentially the intake manifold where it mixes with the air and fuel mixture. Now obviously if you're injecting oil directly into the combustion chamber, you're going to be burning it, and so because of this you're also going to have worse emissions. Now this brings us to our final disadvantage, and probably the biggest reason that keeps the rotary engine out of production, and that's the fact that it has terrible emissions. Now the emission story is really just an effect from the first 3 disadvantages, and that's the fact that it burns oil by design because you're injecting it directly into the combustion chamber. It's tough to seal off the different chambers, and it has a low thermal efficiency and sends fuel right out the exhaust. Now you may think, oh, fuel economy, no big deal, but when you start to compare the rotary engine with other engines out there, you realize just how inefficient it really is. So here's a quick comparison. The 2011 Mazda RX-8, this is a 1.3 liter rotary engine with the manual producing 232 horsepower. In the automatic version it was actually a little bit less, it was just 212 horsepower, and the vehicle weighs 3,065 pounds. Well, its EPA rating was 16 in the city, 22 on the highway, which is pretty pathetic considering how much power it's making and how much it weighs. For comparison, the 2015 Mercedes GLA 45 weighs about 400 pounds more, makes over 120 more horsepower, and it gets 23 in the city, 29 on the highway out of a 2 liter. The 2015 Corvette Stingray out of a 6.2 liter, 3,300 pounds, 455 horsepower, still rated better in the city and way better on the highway. So, looking at the RX-8 engine based on its power and its weight, the fuel economy is just terrible. If you were to compare it with something similar to it, it's very similar in power and weight to the Volkswagen GTI, which has a combined fuel economy rating of 28 versus the RX-8 18. So 55.5% better fuel economy rating from the GTI, even though same power and weight. So it's pretty unbelievably terrible as far as how fuel efficient these engines are. So thank you guys for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below.